There's a quiet lie sitting at the center of modern retirement advice. It doesn't scream. It doesn't look dangerous. In fact, it often comes dressed as guidance, responsible, even helpful. The lie says your retirement success can be boiled down to one giant number, one target, one scoreboard, one moment where you either made it or failed. And because that lie sounds so clean, so simple, so official, millions of people carry it around for years without noticing what it is doing to them. It quietly changes the way you see yourself. You check your balance, compare it to some headline about needing $1 million, and your stomach drops. You start thinking you are behind, even if your house is paid off, even if you have a pension, even if your monthly bills are lower than you think, even if you are closer to real security than you realize. The fear creeps in silently, and it does real damage because it makes you focus on the wrong finish line. Think of it this way. Your income floor is like the foundation of your house, strong, underground, invisible, but holding everything up. Your savings are more like the furniture. The furniture matters. Of course it does. But nobody walks into a house, sees a beautiful couch, and says, "Now this place is safe." Safety starts below the surface. The same is true in retirement. The quiet lie tells you to stare at the couch while ignoring the concrete under your feet. The real question isn't how big your nest egg looks on paper. It's how reliably your life is paid for month after month. That is the question most people never get asked clearly enough. They get asked how much they have. They get asked what their return is. They get asked whether they are keeping up with some huge national average. But they rarely get asked the question that actually decides whether they sleep well at night. Let me just say, if this content resonates with you, the subscribe button is right there. I never waste my viewers' time. Now listen, this is where the whole conversation changes. A person can have $700,000 and still feel trapped. Another person can have $180,000, plus Social Security, plus a modest pension, and feel steady. One looks richer. One often is richer on paper. But paper is not the same thing as peace. You're not trying to impress a spreadsheet in retirement. You're trying to pay for groceries, housing, medicine, gas, birthdays, and ordinary Tuesdays without waking up in a panic. Let me tell you about Barbara and Susan. Barbara is 67. She worked as a public school librarian for 33 years. She lives in a modest, paid-off home outside Columbus. Her retirement account is smaller than she wishes. It sits at about $210,000. When people hear that number, they assume she must be worried all the time. But Barbara gets a small pension. She knows her Social Security benefit. She understands her bills. She is calmer than most people with far more. Susan is 65. She was a regional sales manager, sharp, organized, and a very good saver. She lives in a beautiful city condo with a mortgage that still follows her around like a shadow. Her retirement accounts total $890,000. From the outside, she looks like the one who won. But Susan checks the market before breakfast. She delays turning on the heat. She worries about every repair. She wonders if one bad decade in the stock market could quietly erode everything she built. Here's the thing. If you only look at the balances, Susan seems safe and Barbara seems vulnerable. If you look at their daily lives, the picture changes fast. Barbara's monthly needs are mostly covered before she touches savings. Susan's lifestyle depends heavily on her portfolio continuing to cooperate. Barbara has less money and more certainty. Susan has more money and less certainty. It's not about who has more saved, it's about who has more certainty. Think of retirement in two distinct piles. Pile 1 is income that shows up no matter what. Social Security, a pension, maybe an annuity for some people. Money that lands whether the market is smiling or having a tantrum. Pile 2 is your savings, your IRA, your 401k, your brokerage account, your cash reserves. Most people spend their whole lives staring at Pile 2 because it looks bigger, shinier, and easier to compare. But Pile 1 is usually the part holding your emotional life together. And this is exactly where the lie does its best work. It tells you Pile 2 is everything. It quietly nudges you to ignore the value of a pension because it doesn't come with a flashy account balance. It makes you overlook Social Security because it feels ordinary, almost too familiar to be powerful. But steady monthly income is powerful. In many cases, it is worth more than people realize. Real data often tells a calmer story than perceived data. The problem is that perceived data is louder. Quick question. Have you ever felt like you were doing everything right but still felt behind? You are not alone. Think about a car lot. Every vehicle has a sticker price. Bold, official, intimidating. It looks final, non-negotiable. But nobody pays the sticker. $1 million, 1.5 million, 2 million. Those numbers act like the sticker price of retirement. They look authoritative, but they ignore your trade-ins, your discounts, your financing, your actual needs, and the fact that different people are buying very different lives. Barbara does not need the same retirement as Susan. You probably do not need the same retirement as your neighbor either. Maybe your house is paid off. Maybe you plan to stay home more. Maybe you love simple routines and already know what makes you happy. Maybe your biggest joy is coffee on the porch, seeing your grandkids, and having time back. If that's your life, the million-dollar myth can make you feel poor when, in truth, you may be closer to freedom than you think. Now let's talk about Social Security, because this is where so many retirement decisions quietly go off course. People ask, should I take it at 62, wait until full retirement age, or hold out until 70? That sounds like the right question. It isn't. The real question isn't which age is mathematically perfect. It's which choice best supports your life, your health, your spouse, your work plans, and your need for stable income. A bigger monthly check is useful, but usefulness depends on your real situation. Think of your benefit like a faucet. Behind that faucet is a pipe, one you've been filling your entire working life. Every paycheck, every tax contribution, all of it built pressure in that pipe. When you turn the faucet on at 62, you get water sooner, but the monthly flow is smaller. If you wait until full retirement age, the flow rises. If you wait until 70, it rises again. The pipe is yours either way. The real issue is how and when that water helps your household most. And if you wait too long to turn it on, some of that water never reaches you. It just stays in the pipe. Unused, gone, no refunds, no second chances. That part makes people uncomfortable, but it matters. If someone has serious health concerns, no spouse, and an immediate need for cash flow, taking benefits earlier may be the smarter move. If someone is healthy, working, and wants stronger, lifelong income, waiting may be better. The question isn't what's the best age, it's what's the best decision for your life right now. Susan, on the other hand, keeps treating every retirement decision like a test she might fail. She tells herself that if she claims too early, she loses. If she claims too late, she wastes years. If she spends too much, she ruins the future. If she spends too little, she loses the present. You can hear the strain in that, can't you? That is what the lie does. It turns retirement into a permanent exam, even when the point of retirement was supposed to be relief. Let me ask you something. Do you know what your monthly income will actually look like when you retire? Be honest with yourself. Most people can tell you the size of their account faster than they can tell you the size of their monthly gap. That gap is the space between what life costs and what reliable income covers. If your basic bills are $3,500 a month and your Social Security plus pension brings in $3,200, your gap is $300. That is a very different problem from thinking, I only have $200,000 saved, therefore I must be doomed. Let that sink in. A lot of retirement anxiety is not caused by bad math. It is caused by blurry math. When the numbers stay fuzzy, fear gets to fill in the blanks. Fear is very creative. It will round every cost up, every benefit down, and every future problem into a catastrophe. Clarity does the opposite. Clarity doesn't make life perfect, but it shrinks monsters back down to their actual size. You don't need perfection to have a successful retirement. You need clarity. Now, there is another quiet problem that sneaks in even when people do start calculating. They often underestimate expenses, especially the boring ones. Not vacations, not dream purchases, the boring ones. Home insurance that rises, property taxes that nudge higher, dental work, hearing aids, a water heater that fails on a random Tuesday, a car that lasts 1 year less than you hoped. They are not dramatic, but they add up. Inflation is like an ice cube in the sun. It doesn't melt all at once. It creeps, it nudges, it slowly raises the cost of everything around you. Your groceries, your insurance, your healthcare, your utilities, all of it gets just a little heavier over time. People make a huge mistake when they build a retirement plan using today's prices and then quietly assume tomorrow will be close enough. Close enough can hurt you over a 25 or 30-year retirement. This is why COLA matters more than many people think. Cost of living adjustments are not exciting. Nobody throws a party because a benefit rose a little, but that quiet adjustment helps your income keep up, at least partly, with the world changing around you. It is one reason Social Security is more valuable than it looks from a distance. That check is not just a check. It is a base layer that tries, imperfectly but meaningfully, to keep pace while inflation silently erodes the buying power of everything else. Think about this. If guaranteed income was the only thing that mattered, would you feel better or worse about where you stand? Here is where pensions deserve more respect than they usually get. A lot of people mention a pension like it is a side note. It is not a side note. It can be the anchor of the entire plan. If a pension pays you $1,500 a month for life, that is not just a monthly check. In practical terms, buying that kind of guaranteed income on your own could require a very large pile of assets. But because a pension arrives quietly, people often mentally undervalue it. Barbara never made that mistake. She sees her pension for what it is, Stability she does not have to manufacture herself. It lowers the pressure on her savings. It gives her options. It means a bad market year does not automatically become a bad life year. Susan, meanwhile, has no pension. That does not mean she is doomed. Not at all. But it does mean her savings have to work harder, and it means every market decline feels more personal because it affects not just wealth, but her sense of safety. Now listen, there is a specific kind of risk people do not talk about enough when they focus only on the big number. It is called sequence of returns risk, and I promise this is simpler than it sounds. Imagine trying to water a garden from a barrel while someone is poking holes in the side. If the leaks happen early, while you are also scooping water out every month, the barrel drops faster than you expected. That is what a bad market early in retirement can do. A person retiring into a strong market can sometimes withdraw the same amount as someone else and be fine. Another person retiring into a weak market can do the exact same thing and get hurt badly because losses hit early while withdrawals continue. Same savings, different sequence, different outcome. This is why reliable income matters so much. The more of your basic life is covered without selling investments in bad years, the less exposed you are to the market choosing the worst possible moment to misbehave. Barbara's foundation means she can leave more of her savings alone when markets get ugly. Susan often feels tempted to react because her portfolio is not just a wealth tool, it is also a paycheck machine. That makes every downturn feel like an attack on her monthly life. And when fear meets investing, mistakes often follow. People sell low, they freeze, they change plans midstream. Here's a question for the married folks. Have you and your spouse ever actually talked about what happens if one of you is gone? That may sound dark, but it is one of the kindest conversations you can have. Survivor planning matters. A retirement plan is not just about both of you living a long life together. It also has to account for the possibility that one person goes first. What happens to the pension? Does it continue in full, continue in part, or stop? Which Social Security benefit remains? What bills stay? Which ones disappear? The household changes, but it rarely becomes half as expensive just because one person is missing. Too many couples quietly assume everything will somehow work out. Then one spouse dies, and the survivor discovers that one Social Security check disappears, a pension shrinks, or the old income picture no longer fits the new reality. This is why the timing decision on Social Security can be about more than you. For some couples, especially when one spouse earned more, delaying the higher earner's benefit can protect the survivor later. That is not always the right move, but it is often more important than people realize. Think of Social Security not as an endpoint, but as a safety net, one you paid into your whole life, one that is designed to catch you when you need it most. For a married couple, that net is not just about today. It is also about the day life gets harder. The survivor keeps the higher of the two benefits, not both. That one detail alone can reshape a claiming decision. And yet plenty of households never discuss it until the chance to plan has already passed. Susan is married, and this is part of her anxiety. Her husband Richard is 70 and has some health issues. She worries about care costs. She worries about outliving assets. She worries that if one of them goes first, the remaining income will not feel as solid as they hoped. Those are valid concerns. But valid concerns need structure, not panic. When concerns stay vague, they swell. When you put them on paper, they become something you can work with, improve, and prepare for. Barbara is widowed. That brought pain, of course, but it also forced clarity. She already knows what her monthly life looks like on one income. She already simplified the house, cut what did not matter, and kept what did. She is not richer than Susan, but she understands her life better. That matters more than many people think. There are people with millions of dollars who do not feel secure, and there are people with modest savings who sleep soundly every night. I want to know, have you ever compared your retirement plan to someone else's and felt behind? That feeling isn't always accurate. Comparison is one of the fastest ways to distort retirement. You compare your balance to somebody else's balance, but you do not compare the whole picture. You do not compare their debts, their health, their family needs, their spending habits, their taxes, their housing costs, their stress level, or the fact that they may be quietly terrified. You are comparing one visible number to an invisible life. That comparison is almost always unfair, and it quietly steals gratitude from people who are doing better than they think. Here is the retirement lie nobody talks about. The system trains you to measure accumulation, even though retirement is lived through income. That mismatch creates endless confusion. It makes working people chase giant balances without understanding how those balances translate into monthly life. It makes retirees feel poor while sitting on strong income. It makes people ignore the value of staying power, and it makes flashy numbers feel safer than dependable ones. But dependable is what pays the electric bill. Dependable is what helps you exhale. Retirement is not about how much you've accumulated. It's about whether your income can support your life. That sentence sounds simple, almost too simple, but it cuts through a lot of noise. If your necessary expenses are covered, if inflation is accounted for reasonably, if a market storm does not wreck your monthly dignity, then you are standing on stronger ground than people chasing bragging rights. The point is not to win a comparison contest. The point is to build a life that feels livable, stable, and free enough to enjoy. Now, that does not mean savings are unimportant, not at all. Savings are your shock absorbers. They help with surprises. They create flexibility. They fund joy. They cover the gap when guaranteed income does not reach everything. They are incredibly useful. But they are not the whole engine. If you treat them like the entire plan, you put too much emotional pressure on one tool. And that is when every dip, every headline, and every bad quarter starts feeling like a personal emergency. Think of your retirement like a stool with several legs. One leg might be Social Security, another might be a pension, another might be savings, another could be part-time work for a while, or lower housing costs, or a spouse's benefit. The stronger and more balanced the legs, the steadier the stool. But if almost all the weight sits on one leg, even a thick leg, wobble becomes more likely. That is why the person with a smaller account and more income can quietly be more secure than the person with a larger account alone. Here's something most people never consider. Do you know the difference between what you need and what you want in retirement? That difference matters more than people expect. A lot of fear comes from blending needs and wants into one giant monthly number. You need housing, food, utilities, insurance, and healthcare. You may want extra travel, more gifts, home upgrades, and frequent dinners out. Both categories matter. I am not telling you to live like a monk, but if you know which expenses are essential and which are flexible, you gain power. You stop treating every spending decision like a threat to survival. Let me ask you something. Have you ever thought about what your ideal retirement day actually looks like? Not the numbers, just the feeling. That question matters because money is not the real end goal. Money is a tool for shape and rhythm. Do you want slow mornings, less driving, more time with grandchildren, more gardening, less stress, more space to say yes when something meaningful comes up? When you know what kind of day you are trying to fund, your planning becomes more honest. A retirement built to impress strangers is expensive. A retirement built around your real life can be much more affordable and much more satisfying. This is also why working longer is not automatically a bad answer, but it is not automatically the best answer either. Some people hear any suggestion of claiming at 62 or retiring before 70 and think it means settling. Sometimes it does, sometimes it does not. If working longer increases your benefit, protects your spouse, and you enjoy your job, great. If working longer is wrecking your body, draining your spirit, or simply delaying a life you are ready to live, that cost matters too. Retirement decisions are human decisions. It is not pessimism, it is realism. And in this case, realism isn't negative. It's empowering. Realism says your body matters, your marriage matters, your monthly bills matter, your health matters, your peace matters. Realism says there is no prize for dying with the highest account balance in the family. Realism says enough is a real number, even if it is smaller than the number the internet keeps shouting at you. And once you define enough, fear has fewer places to hide. So what do you actually do with all this? First, figure out your true monthly needs, not your guesses. Pull real statements. Look at the last 12 months. Add housing, food, utilities, insurance, transportation, medical costs, and taxes. Include the boring stuff people forget. Then separate those needs from wants. That one exercise can calm your mind more than staring at your investment balance for 6 months. Because the clearer your monthly number becomes, the more honest your retirement picture becomes. Second, map your reliable income sources in plain English. Write down what Social Security would pay at 62, at full retirement age, and at 70. If you have a pension, write the monthly amount and whether it changes if you or your spouse dies first. If your spouse has benefits, write those down too. Do not keep this in your head. Put it on paper. When your income floor becomes visible, your fear often shrinks because the foundation is no longer abstract. Here's something to think about. If you found out today that you're actually on track, how would that change your week? Third, stress test your plan against real life. What if inflation runs hotter for a while? What if markets drop early in retirement? What if one car lasts less time than you hoped? What if one spouse lives much longer? You are not doing this to scare yourself. You are doing it so surprises do not own you later. A plan that only works when life behaves perfectly is not a plan. It is a wish. Good planning makes room for messy years, because messy years are part of real retirement. Fourth, give your savings a job instead of worshiping the balance. Some money may exist for emergencies, some for travel, some for future care needs, some as the flexible bridge between expenses and guaranteed income. When every dollar has a role, Your account stops being a vague pile of hope and starts becoming a practical tool. That shift matters. It turns savings from a scoreboard into a servant. And your money should serve your life, not the other way around. Fifth, if you are married or partnered, do survivor planning now, not later. Talk through what happens to income if one of you dies first. Review beneficiary choices. Understand how Social Security changes. Understand pension options. Make sure both people know where accounts are, what bills exist, and how the monthly picture shifts. This is an act of love. It may feel uncomfortable for an afternoon, but it can prevent years of confusion and fear for the person left carrying the load. If you do those things, something very important starts to happen. The fog lifts. You stop asking, do I have the magic number? And start asking, does my income support my life? You stop measuring yourself against strangers and start measuring your plan against your reality. You stop assuming fear is wisdom. Sometimes fear is just a sign that the picture is incomplete. Complete the picture, and the emotion often changes. Not always into joy, but very often into steadiness. And steadiness is powerful. Think about Barbara and Susan one more time. Barbara does not win because she guessed right or got lucky every year. She wins because she understands the structure of her life. Susan does not struggle because she failed. She struggles because more assets do not automatically create more peace. Peace usually comes from knowing what must be covered, what is already covered, and what role the rest of the money plays. That is a different way of seeing retirement, and it is a healthier one. The lie says you need a giant pile before you can feel safe. The truth is more nuanced, more human, and honestly, more hopeful. You may already have what people with millions are searching for: a strong income floor, lower fixed costs, a simpler lifestyle, clearer priorities, less need to impress, more room to breathe. None of that means you stop being careful. It means you stop being careless with your own confidence. Stop measuring yourself against everyone else. Start focusing on what truly gives you freedom. Think about this. There are people with millions of dollars who don't feel secure. And there are people with modest savings who sleep soundly every night. The difference isn't the number. The difference is understanding. Understanding your income, understanding your expenses, understanding what actually matters. That's the difference between stress and peace. If this gave you a new perspective, if it made you think differently, even just a little, then subscribe. The more clarity you build now, the stronger your future becomes.